الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Islamic Center at New York University podcast, coming to you straight from the heart of New York City. We're building an amazing Muslim community here at ICNYU where everyone is welcomed and respected no matter where you're from or where you're at. This is the place to be. So open your ears and your heart and come along with us on another life-changing journey. Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to His magnificence, His omnipotence, His might, His glory, to His being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam on one occasion was approached by a companion of his by the name of Aswad ibn Asmar radiyallahu anhu. And he says to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah awsini, that, O Messenger of God, give me advice, give me instruction. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says to him, Hal tamliku lisanak, that are you able to control your tongue? And his beloved companion says that, but what can I be in control of if not the tongue? And he says, فَهَلْ تَمْلِكُ يَدَكَ, that are you able to be in control of your hands? And he responds again in a similar way, but what am I in control of if not the hands? The Prophet ﷺ, he then expands upon his counsel to his beloved companion, and he says, do not utilize this tongue, control this tongue in such a way that with it you don't say anything except that which is right. And control your hand in such a way that you do not extend it towards anything other than what is good. We can extrapolate meaning from this hadith, that it gives us quite a deep understanding that we find in numerous other hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Muslimu man salima an-nas min lisanihi wa yadayhi, that the Muslim is the one that mankind is protected from his tongue and his hands. May Allah make us from amongst them. But in this particular narration, when the companion is coming and saying, Awsini, give me advice, the Prophet ﷺ is utilizing a particular word that is important to understand when he says, Tamliku. That each and every day, whether we are conscious of it or not, we invoke the divine as being Maliki Yawmiddin. In some recitations, Maliki Yawmiddin. And Allah is also Al-Malik. But dominion is completely within the hands of the divine. And that same notion that Allah is the master, the owner, the possessor, the king, the sovereign. This idea that this hadith seeks to invoke within us, that the nuance can get lost in translation, is that the Prophet ﷺ is telling his companion, you be the king of the rest of your body. You are the owner of your tongue. You are the master of your hand. You are the one that is in control of the rest of you. And it's imperative to be able to understand and recognize what this means, especially in a time when so many of us are in a place where quite often the decisions that we decide upon and the choices that we choose are not necessarily in relation to a heart that is sovereign over us. But we quite often succumb to what we say is the result of what it was that we felt, for example, and the feeling in and of itself was so powerful that I couldn't control the words that came out of my mouth. The thoughts were so heavy, they were so pervasive that there wasn't anything that I could do. The food, it looked so good, I just had to eat it. I couldn't be in a place where it was me that was in control, but the stomach is in control, the nafs is in control, the sexual organs are in control. Every other thing has a reason as to why. It dictates and defines why I decide my decisions. The Prophet ﷺ is saying that you be in control of yourself. You be in a place where whatever it is that exists within you, the feelings, the thoughts, the memories, the experiences, every reality that you have witnessed, whatever it is that you have internalized, you want to be in a place where you are malik over your nafs. The idea here can permeate into pretty much any part of our existence. But to understand to the extent of which this was something that was highly prevalent from amongst those who didn't treat this religion just in terms of what was outward and external, but understood the relationship between the outward and the inward. That didn't identify strength to be in control of somebody else, but understood that real power was the ability to control oneself. To have an idea that wasn't just also in moments of anger, which it is, because the hadith says that the strongest of believers is not the one that can wrestle one to the ground, but the strongest of the believers is the one that can control themselves in a moment of anger, in a moment of emotional rage. May Allah make us from the strongest of the mu'mineen. But also just in the day-to-day that we engage in. The ability to have continuity to habits that we seek to inculcate. That is not motivation that is meant to be a driving force. Because if you let motivation be what defines how you choose your choices, there's going to be days that you wake up and you are not motivated to do anything. You're not going to want to take your kids out to the park. You're not going to want to smile in the face of people or extend a hand to greet those that you know or those that you don't know. You're not going to want to visit the sick or honor the elderly or take care of orphans or people in need. Motivation in and of itself is not what the critical factor is. Discipline is what needs to take its place in order to get done what it is that has to get done. When the companion comes to the Messenger ﷺ and asks for advice on fasting outside of the month of Ramadan, and the Prophet tells him to fast the 3 middle days when the moon is at its fullest, the white days, the 13th, 14th, and 15th of the month. And he says, I can do more than that. And he says, then fast on Mondays and Thursdays, and I can do more than that. And he says, then fast every other day, as was the sunnah of the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam. And he said, I can do more than that. That companion is narrated towards the end of the life as saying that I wish I had taken one of the other advices of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he still stuck with it. He didn't let it go. When the companion comes and asks advice of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Ya Abdullah, la takun mithl fulan, kana yakum al-layl wa taraka qiyam al-layl, that, oh Abdullah, don't be like so and such, kana yakum al-layl, that they used to habitually stand in the night. That the construct of kana gives us a notion of continuity. It didn't happen once, it was happening all the time. Kana yakumul layl, that he would stand in the night, wa taraka qiyamul layl, and then he abandoned the night vigil, the night prayer. But what gets in the way for most of what it is, other than this thing of discipline? May we move up, please? If you guys can come up, fill up any carpet that's in front of you. It's going to get pretty filled up in here. So if you have any open area in front, We'd appreciate you could fill it up, inshallah, so we don't have to start sending people downstairs too early. There's a lot of room in this space. I want you to just think, because our books are being filled, may Allah fill them with deeds that are pleasing to Him. And the idea isn't that you have to buy into it for it to be true. You could walk into your house and unleash a mess on the people that are in your home and validate and justify it through variables that make no sense. When you're elder, it doesn't mean you could treat people poorly. If anything, you have more of a responsibility to treat them well. When you have wealth, it doesn't mean that you look down at those who don't have it. If anything, you have more of a responsibility to take care of people in need. When you have degrees and credentials and networks that you have established, the idea is not that you are just in a mode of self-service. If anything, you have more responsibility. This is why the day of judgment is a long day, and those who have less are given more ease of entrance into Jannah, because if you have more things, you're going to be accountable for more things. Not just in terms of possessions, but also in terms of your knowledge, your skills, your credentials. May Allah make us all people of Jannah. But the understanding here in terms of just being able to get through it, whether it's a motivation of exhaustion or a motivation of energy that's present, you still get done what needs to get done. When you struggle and try to understand, why can't I pick up the Mus'haf and read it every day the way that I want to? It's not an issue of motivation, it's an issue of discipline. When you're trying to figure out what's the difficulty of rolling out of a bed to pray when the sun is rising and its light is above the horizons, it's not that the blanket is too warm, it's an absence of discipline. When you're in a place where you have the opportunity to be a source of good, a source of benefit, you can give your seat up for the pregnant woman on the bus. You can hold the door open. You can let the elder eat first. You can volunteer to serve the food. You can pick up things and help be clean. You can be in a place where you have the capacity to do. There might be a multitude of variables, but the foundational variable in all of it is being able to have the discipline to get it done. This can stem into a place of self-control, self-mastery, whatever terminology you want to do, but you have to understand that you are bigger than any of your thoughts, because who is thinking your thoughts then? That you are not fundamentally any one of your feelings, because somebody has to still be feeling the feelings. The Islamic psychology of the self is not rooted just in the physical that we have, the jasad, the badan, that is there. But you got to know the parts that make you in your entirety. You have a nafs, a lower self, that has capacity to be in a state where it's in a place of tranquility. May Allah grant us a nafs that is like this. You have what is called the qalb, the spiritual heart, and the layers that it has is the sadr, that is at the external. Fi sudur nas, as it says in the Quran, that's where shaitan knocks, just on the outer layer. The next layer is the qalb, within that is the fu'ad. As the mother of Moses, peace be upon him, says when she places the child into the water, the anxiety that the Quran describes her through arises in the fu'ad. It's the place and the seat of your emotions and feelings. And central to all of it, its most inner layer is the lub, likened to the relationship of the Kaaba to Mecca. The pupil to your eye is the relationship of the lub to the heart on the whole. You have what is called irada, sheer will and determination. You have the ruh, the soul. You have the aql, intellect. And you have the body, the jasad, the badan. There's a lot more to you than just what is apparent. And being able to understand and recognize yourself in complexity. Not that it's hard to understand, but that you have multiple facets. You now make a determination as to what it is that is actually sovereign over my decisions. What makes my choices for me? How many times in the last week did anger make your choices for you? How many times in the last week did insecurity make your choices, and it validated gossiping that should never be validated? It validated slander. May Allah protect us from these things. How many times in the last week were you motivated to speak untruths and to put falsehood into the world? How many times in the last week when there was an opportunity to do good, did you actually jump at the opportunity to do what is good? When you were choosing between doing something mindless and something mindful, how many of the minutes of the hours in the last week, just between this Jumu'ah and the last Jumu'ah, did you spend on something that made no sense? The average statistic of how much of one's life somebody is spending looking at the computer that's in your pocket is 22 years of your existence. And the amount of time somebody is willing to wait for a page to load on the internet these days is 3 seconds or less, and then they move on. And you know who gives us this data? Not people who are worried about your mental health and wellness, but people who are trying to help others make more money off of seeing you just as a consumer and saying you will lose billions of dollars if you can't get this web page to move within 3, 2, or 1 seconds. They're going to go shop someplace else. The world just sees you as a body. It only sees you in terms of the dollars that you're going to give to it. Your Lord does not look at you in this way in terms of externals, but His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us that Allah looks to your hearts and your deeds. You got to start looking at it and understanding, where does the discipline come in? And how do I start to build it then? I want to just make a list of myself in terms of things that are achievable, but to be able to think about, how do I weather the storm and get it done, whether it's easy or not? I don't want to walk into my home exhausted and tired and validate mistreating my children based off of irreconciled exhaustion that I have or an absence of self-care. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he says that they are called al-abrar, the dutiful ones, because they understand that there is bir from the child to the parent as well as from the parent to the child. It goes in both ways. I don't want to be in a place where the hurt that I have within me that came from others who had their own hurt and from others who had their own hurt and just continued to pass on generational trauma was in a place that's what I'm going to give to the world. I want to be in a place where I'm able to get the things done that I want to get done and to be able to embrace my role as a source of luminosity for this world, to live in a way where I give love, life, and light, and not be in a way where I'm just a leech consuming, I'm contributing, I'm giving more. I want to memorize Quran. I want to pray my sunnah and nawafil. I want to sit after every prayer and be in a place where I benefit from the stillness and make dua and engage in the adhkar that just takes seconds to do. But what's going to get me up and run towards something else? It could be that something else might be more attractive, but what you need is a discipline of the self to say, I'm in control of the body. I'm going to still stay seated. When I have the ability to choose, I will not mute what it is that makes me innately human. Intellectual capacity is something that we were given, the distinction from the rest of creation, where we can embody what it is that Allah enables us to embody. And the prophetic counsel, تَخَلَّقُوا بِأَخْلَاقِ اللَّهِ, that you now embody the characteristics of the divine that you have been given the capacity to. And you understand that within the Adamic narrative of creation, one of the things that Adam was given that was not given to others, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, Adam was given the knowledge of the names of everything, but an opportunity to elevate to a level rooted in divine intellect. What are your weaknesses? Are you comfortable enough admitting them? Can you get through the world by being able to acknowledge, this is something that I'm not good at? Not just a vulnerability in terms of where shaitan can access us. May Allah protect us from his waswasa. But a recognition of, what are my non-strengths, areas of improvement? What are the things that I know that I could be doing better? The self-reproaching nafs, the nafs al-lawama, is not a state where you just hate on yourself. That's just giving shaitan victory over you. This is what happens when the Prophet's companion who struggles with drinking alcohol comes to take the hajj. This is a Sahaba who in other narrations the Prophet is seen as laughing with him. They have a close relationship. And when he comes to take the had punishment, lashes for drinking, others would speak poorly of him. And our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say to those people, don't say such things. He loves Allah and His Messenger. Don't say such things. Do not assist shaitan in victory over your brother. You don't want to give shaitan an ease of victory over you by being able to pretend that something that is there is actually not there. Recognizing where and how that sense of discipline becomes a key ingredient to be able to actually take in contentment that this deen tells us you can only acquire when you move in that direction. What am I an actual worshiper of? What am I an actual servant of? What do I submit to when I make my choices and decisions? You look within yourself on the Mubarak day of Jumu'ah, and you seek to understand yourself as best as you can. What gets in the way, what creates stress, what creates anxiety, and to not be in a place where we pretend like these are not things that come up. The dua that many of us know, where the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wa min al-ajzi wal-kasal, to the end of the dua. The way that that dua is taught is that there's a Sahaba by the name of Abu Umama who is sitting in the masjid at a time when nobody's praying. And the Prophet ﷺ comes into the masjid and sees him there at a time when there is no prayer, and he makes inquiry as to what is taking place. And this companion of the Prophet ﷺ, he says that I am in a state of worry. I am also worried about finances. He has anxiety. Your Prophet doesn't say to him, Astaghfirullah, we are not people who have anxiety. There must be something wrong with you that you are feeling this thing. Allah is the one that gave you all of your feelings in the first place. He engages him, acknowledges his presence, talks to him, understands what it is that he's going through, and then he gives him something to impact his behavioral action. This dua, to change the thought process, to change how he sees and understands things. But where and how the yield can be that it becomes now the defining variable of my decisions and my choices. And I want to fundamentally be in a place where I'm not just a person of complacency, seeking what is immediate gratification, immediate satisfaction, and having the nafs of a child that cries and throws a tantrum when I don't get what I want right when I want it at the moment that I want it. But I start to grow to have a nafs of one that has wisdom. And I'm in a place where I don't give shaitan victory over me, that the nafs al-lawama, the self-reproaching nafs, it's the self that acknowledges what it does not do well as the good that it does that can be done better. In order for you to be able to acknowledge what you don't do well, you have to be able to admit, I don't do these things right. But more importantly, in order to acknowledge what it is that you do well, that you can do better, you have to be able also to acknowledge what it is that you're doing well in the first place. You don't want to go in either extreme and give shaitan assistance over you. Places that we can start. The Quran is the book of God. It is the book of Allah. We know this. But as much as it is the book of Allah, it is also a book that is about Allah. And if you want to get to a place where anything makes sense in this religion, you have to be able to understand first and foremost who Allah is to you. What He gives to us throughout that book is an insight for us to deepen in our capacity of knowing Him. And where and how we can recognize and understand who the divine is, we can understand who we are in relation to Him and understand what all of this is about. There's not a page in the book that doesn't challenge you to be someone who reflects, thinks, ponders, contemplates. And it'd be hard to find a page that doesn't mention other foundational theologies of this religion, primarily the idea that there's a world beyond this one. May Allah make us people of Jannah. Ali radiallahu anh, he says that have the world placed to your back and have the hereafter in front of you. And he says that there are children of the world and there are children of the hereafter. So choose to be a child of the hereafter and not a child of this world. Be in a place where you are trying to understand that the link between that sense of self-control and self-discipline is going to be firmly rooted in understanding what are my actual convictions and my actual beliefs. And if you have a belief that says that the acquisition of dunya in and of itself as an ends is what success is, as your brother who loves you, I'm going to tell you, that's wrong, man. But if you can put that acquisition of this world into a frame of understanding its proportionality to the world beyond this one, you are in a place where you don't just engage the text as understanding it as a book of God, but a book that is about God, that can help you deepen in your understanding of who Allah is and what it is that He wants from you, not for any other one's benefit other than your benefit. Then getting up for Fajr is going to be a totally different thing. Being kind to your spouse, there won't be even any other alternative. Jumping at the opportunity of being able to love your child and say that I love you, not leaving it to assumption. You won't even think about justifying it through culture. You'll just recognize the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was that he told his grandchildren that he loved them. The discipline comes in. What brings me to a place where I am in control, and what gets in the way is important to understand also. Beyond keeping the company of Allah's book and keeping the company of the sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, keep the company of people that are going to bring you towards things that are good. We have the capacity to be those who choose to make our own choices, but we also have the capacity to be in a place where we simply just follow those that are around us. This is not an inherited religion, nor is it a sociological identity variable. We have a theology that's a discursive theology. If somebody asks you why you believe in Islam, you can't say because my dad was Muslim or my mom was Muslim. You have to have a reason as to why you believe in Islam. And where the Quran speaks about those who give in to the nafs and they allow for the nafs to be what is sovereign and they just wander as if they are cattle. Ulaika kal an'am is what it says. That's what a cow does. It follows the herd. You want to be strong enough to not distance yourself from people, but be bold enough to just live with an individual sense of conviction. You can't believe something because somebody else believes it. That's not how it works. You don't believe something because your grandparents believed it. Belief lies in your heart. It's discipline that's needed to read a book. It's discipline that's needed to be able to engage in positive social habit formation. To say that I'm going to still get up to go to pray that prayer. I'm going to still get up to go to that class or that halaqah. I'm going to still get up to get the things done that need to get done. What are some of the things that dilute it? When you're feeding every other part of yourself other than the intellect. Your organs of cognition are your heart and your mind. Think about what you do to nourish them. In comparison, just objectively think about the imbalance that is nourishing every other part of your body. And not nourishing in a way that's healthy, but you're just feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. If you engage in a process that can understand that you live reflectively in a world that more people are dying from eating too much than not eating at all, how can you have discipline? You can't control your stomach. That in the world right now, the highest rates of pornography viewing are in Muslim countries. May Allah make things easy for the people who turn to this. Everyone doesn't turn to haram because they're bad people. Quite often people turn to haram to compensate for what they need to really heal inwardly from pain, from rejection, from difficulty. But if you are literally just satisfying the physical with complacency, and in the process there's just numbing to the rest, or just not an acknowledgement of what's there, then how can an unfed heart or an unfed mind be in a place where it's going to control decisions? And that's where you don't want to throw your back against the wall, but you see these rituals and practices as actual spiritual exercises that enhance the celestial self. So every time you decide to not pray a prayer, every time you decide to not engage in the adhkar, every time you decide to eat haram simply because it tastes better, every time you make an excuse from being able to acquire wealth from a haram source, it's just things that are going to continue to numb the discipline and then not get done what needs to get done to be able to stand in front of the divine saying that I fulfilled the purpose for which you had intended me for. Just think about between this week and last week, what was making your decisions? You want to know the state of your heart? This is what our teachers teach us. You know where your heart is simply by looking at what the choices were that you made. In the public arena, in a private place, in a secret place where it's just you and Allah. Don't give shaitan entry. It's not self-deprecation, it's contemplation, reflection, muhasabah, accounting of the self. And then you allow for yourself within that to set parameters of saying, this is where I want to be, what do I need to do? Take a breath sometimes and say instinctively, I'm not going to get up at the end of the prayer. I'm going to say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, the dhikr that's been given to me for my benefit. I'm going to make dua, even if I don't know what else to make, just ask Allah to accept from you. Ask Allah to give you Jannah. You don't want to make dua for yourself? Tell Allah to give me Jannah. But be in a place where you're sitting and you're doing something so that you break the control that the parts of you that want you to believe you are in submission to them, you say that I am in control of myself and I am in submission to the only one that is truly Al-Malik. This is where Aswad ibn Asmar radiyallahu an, he asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Awsini ya Rasulullah, give me advice. And he says, Hal tamliku lisanak, that are you malik over your tongue? Do you have that ability? And he says, if I'm not in control over it, then what else am I in control over? And he says, فَهَلْ تَمْلِكُ يَدَكَ, that are you malik over your hands? And he responds again in the same way. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, control your tongue in such a way that it only speaks what is right. And control your hands in such a way that you only extend them towards that which is good. But he's telling his companion, you be malik over yourself. Don't let yourself be malik over you. Something that we should think about as we have the opportunity and time to do so. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. Inshallah ta'ala, following the end of this Jumu'ah, we're going to be switching our operations to a summer mode of schedule. The relevancy to all of you is that we will continue to have the Jumu'ah prayers here, inshallah. And so every Friday of the year we are here. Please continue to come. The timings will be the same. There'll be some other shifts that we will notify you of in terms of locations of some of our halaqat, the iftars that we do on Mondays and Thursdays. But we'd love to continue to see all of you there. But you want to start to get into a place where at this juncture in your life, you are asking the question of what does this all mean? What am I really chasing after? What is it that I'm really in pursuit of? How is it that I'm taking the beauty of this deen and allowing for myself to engage in opportunities with my brothers and sisters and supportive community to have growth in my own spiritual journey, but still a journey nonetheless? And where does it not negate other responsibilities that I still have to friends, family members? I have to society, the rest of Allah's creation. And so when you come to Mubarak gatherings, it replenishes the heart. When you're in a place where the angels are descending, it allows for metaphysical impact. You want a starting point for yourself when the rest of the world is doing everything else that it could possibly do. You still answered the call to the Jumu'ah prayer. And may Allah accept it from you and all of us. But what is it that's going on in you that you made that decision to come and just be here in this space? And you take that as a base principally to say, how do I start applying it to other things that I have going on in the course of my day, my week, my month, for the overall development of myself. Not just my worldly acquisitions, but professional aside, emotional, spiritual, mental, not just in terms of dunya, but in terms of akhirah, not just in terms of when I stand in front of any of God's creation, but when I stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla Himself. Just a little bit of reflection that says, I could have chosen to be anywhere else this Friday afternoon. What gave me the ability and the discipline to say that I'm going to choose to answer the call to the Jumu'ah prayer? And when you can extrapolate meaning of the self and apply it consciously, you're going to see that no goal is beyond your capacity. Because achievement is not going to simply be rooted in a satisfaction of the self, immediate gratification. But it's going to be rooted in something that understands that you are a created being, but you are created for eternal existence. And you don't want to just have short-term satisfaction, but real rida, real contentment in the place of the ultimate contentment in the world beyond this one. Utilize this day of Jumu'ah. Ask of Allah to make you a person of stillness. Ask Allah to enable you to be in control of yourself fully and to equip you with what you need in terms of supporters, helpers, and friends to gain control over those things that you struggle and have difficulty with. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from any affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope. Hearts that are drawn towards things of real goodness and beauty. Hearts that find themselves deep in your remembrance, for indeed in your remembrance do hearts find rest. Make us, Ya Rabbi, from amongst those who are in control of ourselves. Help us to never be those who utilize our hands, our tongues, or anything that you have blessed us with to be a cause of pain or hurt for others. And we are in a place where the feelings become overwhelming, where the thoughts become heavy, where things feel difficult and dark. Then send to us those who will illuminate our insides and help us to remember who it is that we are. Make us those who are not scared to read your book, but those who are from amongst the ones that understand its most apparent and deep and hidden meanings. Make us those who utilize its guidance, its wisdoms, its teachings to understand you in whatever capacity we can, so that we can in turn understand ourselves and understand what our roles are within the world that we currently traverse in. Help us to take that understanding to inform our decisions and choices, to be in a place where when we have an option in front of us that we always choose goodness over what is evil. Make us those who always choose beauty over ugliness, those who choose what is pleasing to you over what it is that our lower selves call us towards. Forgive us when we make mistakes. Forgive us when we slip. Send to us those who will help us stand firmly and rise up again after we have fallen. And never let us be those, Ya Allah, who push people down, or even worse, push them further when they are already down. Bless this community always, and make us from amongst those who are from the best of your righteous servants. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيم الصلاة.
We hope you enjoyed our podcast. If you're inspired by the work that we're doing at the IC and want to help keep it going, subscribe to our podcasts, follow us on social media, donate to help support us at ICNYU.org, and most importantly, keep us in your continued du'as. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.